Hello from Montreal. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in Belgrade in person, although it's close to my city of birth, Budapest. I hope that I'll be able to give this talk live tomorrow, but I'm recording it tonight just in case it turns out that the equipment doesn't work. So this is a talk about open access, and I'll be describing to you what green and gold open access are, what Gratis and Libre open access are, and whether there are any differences with respect to open access for North, which means developed and rich countries, and South, which means less developed and not so rich countries, and in general, how to get there for open access. First of all, what is open access? It's free, immediate, permanent, online access, that's electronic access, to peer-reviewed research journal articles. There are many other things that one might want to have free access to, but the primary target of the open access movement is the approximately 2.5 million articles a year that are published in the world's 25,000 peer-reviewed journals in all disciplines, in science, in social science, in humanities, and in arts. Open access comes in, let's say, 2 degrees. What I've described so far actually is gratis open access, which is free online access. In addition to free online access, you can also have certain reuse rights. The rights to data mine, the rights to modify or to use in other works. And there are many Creative Commons licenses that can be used to license these other uses, CC BY being one of the most, one of the broadest of the licenses. But Libre Open Access is not what I'm here to talk about. Libre Open Access will come eventually, but what is within reach right now of the entire world network of research institutions and universities is gratis open access, which is free online access. So that's what I'll be talking about today. As to the North and the South, there are many misconceptions about this. I will describe the benefits of open access. There are benefits both to users who haven't got access to the journal in which the article was, the research was published, and there are also benefits to the authors of the article, and there are overall benefits to research and research progress. It's a mistake to imagine that the benefits of open access are some sort of charity that the North does towards the South. That's not true at all. Northern users, authors, and research benefit from open access, and Southern users, authors, and research benefit from open access, and North makes its research available to the South, and South makes its research accessible to the North. On both sides, there are authors who will then use it, apply it, and build upon it, so generate impact, and that's what produces research progress. So as far as developing and developed countries are concerned, open access is a benefit to both of them. I know that the theme of this conference is journals, and I'm actually not here to talk so much about the journals themselves. I'm here to talk about the articles in the journals and how to make them open access. But one of the interests in this conference, I know, is how to increase the impact of the Southern journals, the journals that come from developing countries. Of course, open access increases the impact of all research that has let's say, all usable research. If you have research that no one can use, apply, and build upon, then you can't increase its research impact. But if it is potentially usable and users are denied access to it because of journal subscription barriers, because their institution can't afford the journal, then open access will increase the usage and therefore increase the impact of the journal. However, journal economics are a very special consideration in the area of open access, and I'll be discussing that separately. Not the way this conference is focusing, which is how to increase the impact of developing country journals, but rather what role open access will play in the transition from subscription journals to open access journals. But for that, I have to define open access journals. There are two ways of providing open access. There are two roads to open access, the so-called green road and the golden road. The green road is self-archiving. The author deposits the final draft of his article when it's accepted by the journal, deposits it in an institutional repository, which is open access, which is free, gratis open access. It's freely accessible to everyone on the web. That's green open access self-archiving, and it applies to all articles in all journals. Gold open access is open access journal publishing. These are journals that, where it's the journal that makes the articles freely accessible on the web. Again, just as I'm not here to discuss Libre OA, particularly Libre open access, I'm not particularly going to discuss gold open access. Both Libre open access and gold open access are desirable and will eventually happen. But in order to make them happen, you have to first have green open access. And the reason green open access has to come first is because green open access can be provided for all articles in all journals today. Most journals today are not open access journals, and publishers are mostly not interested in becoming open access publishers until and unless they have some sort of guarantee that they'll be able to meet their costs and make their usual profit if they switch to the open access cost recovery model, which is to pay for charge a fee to the author or the author's institution instead of for publishing, instead of charging subscription to the user institution for access. Now, that gold open access model will eventually prevail, but one of the things that is holding back open access in general on the entire planet is the confused idea, and I'm sure it's repeated over and over again here at this conference, that what open access means is gold open access publishing. It's almost used synonymously. When somebody says open access, they say open access publishing. That's incorrect. Open access is, as I defined it, free online access to journal articles, and there are two ways to provide it, and the first way, and the priority, the way that should be given priority is green open access self-archiving. Now, what is green open access self-archiving? When an article this is the life cycle of research and of research articles. First, the research is done, as you see in the upper left-hand corner, and then a preprint. The findings are reported in a preprint, and they're submitted to a journal. The journal then sends it to peer reviewers to assess its quality and what needs to be done and whether it's potentially acceptable. They make recommendations, which are then the editor goes over them and gives them back to the authors, and the authors revise. And sometimes there are several cycles of revision until a final peer-reviewed draft is accepted for publication by the journal, and then it's copy edited, and a print edition and an online edition is produced, and then those who have access, who can afford access, read, use, apply and build upon the research in future cycles, and then the cycles continue like that. But as you see on the bottom right, the access is limited. It's limited to those who can afford to access to subscribe to the journal in which the research appeared, and that's mostly researchers at institutions. Now, institutions can't afford most or even many of the journals, of the 25,000 journals that are published annually, and so the access is restricted and limited by the fact that affordability, the journals are not affordable enough for any university to subscribe to all, most, or even many of them. And in fact, this is not just a north-south difference. Also, in rich countries, there are always poorer institutions that can only afford a small fraction of all the journals. Very recently, Harvard University, the richest of all, the one with the largest journal selection, said that its journal subscriptions were unaffordable and unsustainable even for Harvard. So even the richest university can't afford all or even most of those journals. What can be done? Here's green open access. What you can do is the final peer-reviewed draft, the one that has been refereed, revised, and accepted for publication, can be deposited in the author's institutional repository, and then not just subscribers, but everyone, every potential user on the web can access them, and that increases the impact and the productivity of research. That's what this is all about. In 2001, Steve Lawrence showed in Computer Science that open access articles are cited 3 times as much as non-open access articles. In every citation bracket, there are 0 citation articles, 1 citation, 2 to 3, 4 to 7. This is a logarithmic scale. The proportion of open access articles is increasing, and the proportion in the higher citation brackets is higher than in the low citation brackets. This is just another way of stating that for more citable articles, open access enhances their citations even more. An uncitable article with 0 citations probably won't be cited even if it's made open access. But more citable articles, which means more useful articles, will reach their potential users much more widely and much more fully if they're made open access rather than restricted only to those users whose institution can afford to subscribe to the journal in which they appear. This, what we now call the open access impact advantage, this has been confirmed in discipline after discipline, in sciences, social sciences, biological sciences, humanities, every discipline that has been tested. Don't put too much weight on the size of the open access advantage, because this changes from discipline to discipline and from year to year. But the thing to notice is that in every discipline, the advantage is positive. Open access articles are cited more and used more and applied more than non-open access journals. And the reason is obvious. The non-open access journals can only be used, cited, applied, and built upon by researchers whose institutions can afford to subscribe to the journal in which they appeared, and the open access articles can be used by any potential user, any would-be user all over the planet. Impact is important. In the UK, there is a so-called research assessment exercise where every department of every university in the every research active university in the country is evaluated every 4 or 6 years and ranked for the quality and importance of its research output. Interestingly, until now, it was not allowed for the ranking to look at citations. So citations were not counted for these articles. The articles were given to a reading committee. It's sort of like peer review, but it's not peer review because the articles have already been peer reviewed. But it's an evaluation committee that ranks them for their importance, and then according to their rank, they rank the universities. And according to the university's rank, they receive funding, top-sliced funding, substantial top-sliced funding, depending on their rank. The higher the rank, the more money for research they get. And the interesting result is that Charles Oppenheim has done a lot of these studies, in discipline after discipline, the ranking given by evaluators was highly correlated with the citation counts of the articles that were submitted, or the authors of the articles that were submitted. So if instead of spending all the time and money that they spent on re-evaluating all of these articles by committees, if they had simply counted citations, then the rankings would have been 90% the same as they were here. That means that although it wasn't explicitly measured, articles with higher research impact receive a higher rank in research evaluation, and therefore they get funded more. So that's just one example of the advantages. Now, repositories are all over the planet. This is already out of date. There are many more repositories than this. But the trouble is that these repositories are near empty. We've done studies to show that the spontaneous, the voluntary, spontaneous, unmandated rate of deposit free online on the web, in repositories and on websites or wherever, is about 20%. That means 20% of the articles that are published every year are made open access by their authors. That's the right-hand side, the lowest bars in the figure that you see here. What you see beside them, the five sets of bars that you see beside them, the upper data are for 2002 to 2006, and the lower data are for a larger sample. And since then, we've made the sample even bigger. The higher bars are for institutions that have required, mandated deposit. The lower ones are for the ones that are deposited spontaneously. And this is why I say most of the repositories, although there are many repositories, are mostly empty. 80% of articles that are produced by those institutions are not self-archived by their authors, except if it's mandated. And if it's mandated, it triples the deposit rate almost right away, and actually these figures are out of date as well. It climbs steadily towards 100% within a few years. So the way to get 100% gratis, green, open access is for institutions and research funders to mandate it, to require it. Research funders as a condition for funding the research, and research institutions as a condition of employment, and especially as a condition of advancement, salary rise, tenure, etc. When research performance is evaluated the way that it was evaluated in the UK with the research assessment exercise that I just described, something like that is done within institutions as well. And when they evaluate research productivity and impact, they don't just count publications. They also look at, for example, the research impact of the journal in which they appeared, and the research and the citation counts of the articles themselves. These are all rewarded. And the way to make sure that research is deposited is to mandate that it should be deposited, self-archived, and make the institutional repository the only way to submit publications for evaluation. It's really just an administrative procedure. When we switched from paper submissions to online submissions, we said, look, from now on, you can't submit your curriculum vitae on paper. We require it online. Well, this is the next step. The way to submit your publications is not just to put them on your CV. You deposit the article in the institutional repository. That creates a mandate, and that motivates researchers to deposit. And of course, their reward is that their research impact increases, as I showed just before. Researchers are not at all opposed to mandates. These are data that Alma Swan gathered from all over the world in different countries. And as you see, the green part of the bar is those researchers who say that if their institution mandates deposit, self-archiving, green open access, they would comply willingly. The yellow ones are the ones who say they would comply but reluctantly, and the red ones are the ones who say they won't comply. And as you see, willing compliance is already over 80%. That's part of the explanation of why it is that deposits jump right away from 60, 70, 80%. In addition, publishers, journals, divide into those journals that have given their green light to immediate, gratis, green, open access, and that's already over 60% of journals. There's another 31% that have given their green light, but only to the unrefereed draft, and then there's the remaining 5% of journals that don't agree to open access at all. The green part, 60%, should already be the level at which everyone is self-archiving even without a mandate. But as I said, the spontaneous self-archiving level for a variety of reasons. The reasons authors don't do it unless it's mandated, even though they do it willingly when it's mandated, is partly because of priorities and sort of inertia. They need to have deposit mandate just as they need a publish or perish mandate. If you didn't have a publish or perish mandate, researchers would do research and then put their results in a desk drawer. They wouldn't even bother to publish it. They'd move on to the next thing that interests them. So you need a mandate to get them to do, but of course for their careers they need to publish it. So they get the benefits of a publish or perish mandate. They also get the benefits of a self-archiving mandate because it increases their research impact and therefore helps them on performance review. There are now about 250 mandates worldwide, including some very prominent ones. Among research institutions, Harvard has a self-archiving mandate. University of London has one. Among research funders, all of the UK research funding councils have a mandate. The European Union is now, it has a mandate for about 20% of its research, but it's about to increase it to 100% of EU-funded research. The US has the National Institutes of Health has a funder mandate, and in addition, there's a bill in the United States Congress that is being considered now that would make all of the 10 major US research funders mandate green open access. And an increasing number of universities have mandated it as well, but not enough. And in fact, if there's a message that I hope you'll take home from this meeting is, go home and get your own institution to mandate open access and persuade other institutions to do it as well. There are economic reasons for this and not just scientific reasons. Obviously, the scientific reason is the primary one. You want to maximize the impact of research and maximize the progress of research. But John Houghton has done a remarkable study of various forms of open access models, and his study was mainly focused on open access publishing. But he included, along with open access publishing, gold open access, he included data on green open access self-archiving. And the remarkable result was that the benefit to cost ratio for open access, green open access self-archiving is the highest of all. In the UK, it's 40-to-1 ratio of benefits to costs by just mandating open access. There are benefits from gold open access publishing too, but it's much more complicated. You can't mandate gold open access. Publishers are not ready to convert to gold open access yet. And you can't force authors to publish in just the few gold open access journals that exist. They may not be appropriate for the author's work. The author has the right to publish in the best and highest quality journal for his work. And so you can't mandate gold open access. You can mandate green open access. And the reason green open access, I will later soon describe why it's so important to mandate green open access first, but already a reason is that it's within reach, it can be done for all research, it maximizes research impact and progress, and it also brings 40-to-1 benefit cost ratio economically. Now, here's the status quo in research and research publishing. Today, the institutional funds that pay for publication, because publication is being paid for by subscriptions mostly, they are locked into journal subscriptions. Those journal subscriptions, the essential ones, can't be canceled because otherwise users can't access the contents of the journals. The journals that institutions cannot afford to subscribe to, users cannot access. So access is research. Access and research impact and research progress is being lost because of those journals that can't be afforded by all or most institutions. And as I said, institutions can only afford a small fraction. Even Harvard can only afford a fraction of all journals, and the sustainability of that has been cast into doubt. So there is not enough access. Because there isn't enough access, users lose access, authors lose impact, and research loses progress. And as I said, this is equally true for developing and developed nations, for North and South. Now, to pay the fees for gold open access today is to pay double while still paying for subscriptions. Most journals are still subscription journals, especially the top journals that everyone needs. You can't cancel those subscriptions until the contents of those journals are available in some other way. And therefore, if you're going to pay for gold open access, there's very little money available, and you're basically paying twice. You're paying subscriptions and for incoming articles, and in addition, you're paying fees for outgoing articles. So gold open access, it was important to demonstrate that it was possible, and there are many, there are many gold open access journals, but there's only a few of them that are really high quality, and those are important to have. The PLOS journals are very high quality. It was important to demonstrate that that was possible, but they're premature because the money is locked into subscriptions. What to do about that? Here is the transition scenario that I would like to describe. The first thing that has to be done is green open access self-archiving has to be mandated by institutions and research funders all over the planet. The mandates we have are fine, but they're way too few. The example of universities like Harvard and University of London and Southampton University, where I am, which was the first university to have, in fact, it was the first to adopted an open access mandate, whether in university or research funder. So these universities' examples should be followed. The best example to follow now is that of the University of Liège, whose rector, Bernard Rentier, has adopted the optimal green open access mandate. Not all open access mandates are equally good. The best one is the Liège model, which is called IDOA, immediate deposit, optional access. You can ask me about this in question period. I won't discuss this in detail right now. Funders should also mandate open access, which all research, not all research is funded, but all research comes from institutions, whether funded or unfunded, in all fields. So the universal provider of all research is institutions. So institutional mandates are the most important. Funders reinforce institutional mandates, and if funder mandates are good, and some of them are not optimal either, but the optimal funder mandate says you must if you want research funding, you must deposit the articles that result from the research in your institutional repository. The advantage of that is it motivates the institutions, and of course, funders reach into many institutions. It will motivate the institutions to match that with mandates of their own, not just for their funded research, but for all of their research output. Anyway, the first step that's needed is that, and it's within reach, is to have all institutions and funders mandate green open access self-archiving. That will generate 100% green open access. The access problem, the impact problem, the research progress problem will be solved by universal green open access mandates. What that also makes possible, remember I said that the reason gold open access is premature is because funds are locked into journal subscriptions, because there's no alternative. But if you have 100% green open access, there is an alternative. Institutions can cancel journal subscriptions because their users have access to the green open access version. That, if journals are canceled, then journals have to figure out a way to make ends meet. If subscriptions become unsustainable, journals have to cut costs, and they can cut costs. They drop their print version and they drop their online version. It's no longer needed, and they don't have to do archiving because all of that is being done by the institutional repository already. The only thing journals have to do is provide peer review. That costs much less than what they're doing right now. They're producing the online version, the print version, they're archiving, etc. If they only produce peer review, then they could convert to golden open access, and the institutions would have the money to pay for it out of their windfall subscription cancellation savings. So the much reduced cost of gold open access publishing, not the cost that's being charged today, because gold open access publishing's price is still quite inflated, but the price that will be charged when the only thing journals do is provide peer review, the money for that will be available. It will no longer be locked into subscriptions. It'll be available instead of being paid to buy in the refereed research output of other institutions, it will be used to pay for the publication of the refereed research output of the institution itself, and that will make it available to all other institutions. Here are some background papers that will describe this in more detail, and they're all self-archived, so these URLs will allow you to reach them directly, open access on the web. The bottom paper describes some things connected with the IDOA mandate that I mentioned, because there's also a button that the repositories have for dealing with the articles that the publishers embargo, where there are publishers, as I said, over 60% of journals have already endorsed immediate green open access, but for the 40% that haven't, there's a solution. You can ask me about it in discussion, but the bottom reference talks about that. The reference above that is about university and funder mandates, and above that is some papers. That the economic benefits are described. The transition scenario is the first paper over there, and then there's some more papers on why it is that it's important not to mix up gold open access publishing with open access, and why it's important for green open access to come first. And with that, mnogo hvala, and I'm ready for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steven. We have 3 other questions or comments.
So I'm the first one who are coming from librarian world and really looking forward for this nice future with all this cancellation and all this saving and budgeting. So my question is, so what do you think about open citation indexing? And also be very polite, because we have very high level representative of ISI here in the room. So please be polite in answer. Yeah.
I know who's there.
Yeah.
Yes. I know who's there. And I said what I said before because I think it's true. It's not obvious to me when everything is green open access, how long ISI can maintain its niche. But for now, it's very important, and I'm all for open citation indexing, except that I think it should be supplemented by content that ISI doesn't cover. In other words, ISI should do as much as it can, and in addition, what's needed most is more open access content, and then we need harvesters and citation calculators for the open access content as well. Then you will have an ISI estimate of citation impact, and you'll also have non-ISI indexes.
Great.
Was that polite enough?
Yeah. He's smiling.
Sorry, Steve, just again to bother you about the publisher's version or the post-print version.
A little louder, please, speak into the microphone.
Okay, just to bother you once more about the post-print or the publisher's version. How do we secure the uniform citation if we make the post-print version accessible? Do we ask the author to to adjust the last changes the publisher did to the manuscript, so that we actually have, if not the same paging, but at least have an identical version on the repository to the published version?
Okay, 3 things. 3 things that you may mean here. Don't go away from the microphone, because I have some questions for you too. What is the citation problem? Today, when somebody can't access an article at all, having the green version to access provides him with an opportunity to know what the research is and to use it and to build on it. There is the possibility that the copy editor has changed a which to a that the author doesn't know about, but I wouldn't worry very much about that. Authors themselves, we're right now in the supplementary stage, where those who have subscription access and will use it, and everything there is the status quo and it stays as it is. Nothing is lost. This is a supplement added to it. For those who have access to the green, gratis, open access version, I ask you the same question. As a researcher, would you say, on the possibility that there might be a discrepancy between the author's refereed final draft and the published version, should I not read this? Should I not use it? Should I not cite it? Of course not. Of course you'll cite it. And what you cite is the published version. And in addition to citing the published version, the canonical version, everybody cites the published version. You will say which was the accessed version. You add to the citation which version you accessed. And if you accessed the green version, then you say that was the one you accessed. That solves all of the scholarly problems. And moreover, we're in the supplementary stage now. Once everything is offloaded onto the institutional repositories, scholarly behavior will change and institutional behavior will change, and the canonical version will become the institutional version because there's no longer any publisher's PDF. But while there is a publisher's PDF, that's the canonical version, and this is all just a bonus.
Okay. Thank you.
He had 3 questions. Stevan, it's my turn. Nice to see you.
Good. Nice to see you too.
Servus. I have 2 questions. One was generated by my colleague over there, who was asking about search habits, and Stevan wanted to know the causal link. I'm not going to provide the causal link, but I want a new argument from you, and I think you're the right address for good arguments. So I think my colleague was asking, isn't it difficult to transfer the search interest from the industry brands to an institutional repository? And I think this was the core of his question, and I think it is correct insofar as, I suppose, and I'm a publisher myself, so I know a bit how my authors behave. They would like to publish or reposit their stuff where they would themselves be going to seek the production of their peers. So this is a big task for institutional repositories. What would be your argument?
Yes, I think I suggest that you think of it really from the point of view of a researcher, because it's obvious then. The researcher does in this new green and new world, and let's talk now about the supplementary green world. I'm not talking yet about where things convert to open access and the only version is the institutional version. Let's talk about we have the 25,000 journals, we have the indexers, ISI, that index the journals, we have the users who consult ISI, and if their institution has a subscription, then they use the canonical PDF of the publisher, and everything's exactly as it is now. And we're talking now about a supplement to that system for those users who can access the ISI search fine, but when they hit a paper and it's published by Nature, they don't have, let's say Nature, they don't have subscription access to Nature. However, they do have green open access. They don't go somewhere else to do the searching. They go somewhere else to access it. And by the way, I guarantee that once the amount of green open access is not 20%, but closer to 80 or 90%, there will be plenty of simple add-ons. So that when you do an ISI search, whenever you hit an article that your institution doesn't subscribe to, this software will immediately look for a free version of it in the institutional repositories. So this is trivial. It's absolutely trivial. The only thing that's non-trivial is providing that supplementary green content.
I agree. Thank you. That was a good argument I wouldn't have thought of course. The next question, I'm quite happy to see coming up the North-South topic in your presentations. I need a good argument to answer the following. Isn't open access actually, and I've been asked this and I was at a loss for an argument, so I thought the next time I meet you I'll ask you. So this is the moment. Somebody came up to me who is very critical of colonialism and the imperialism that we see in globalization. And this person said, okay, open access is fine because many people can read much more than they used to, even if they don't have the time, but they have the possibility to read much more. But will actually people from the so-called non-developed countries or developing countries, will they actually be in a position to publish more and to make their own voices heard more? If they can read more, it doesn't mean that everyone else is able to hear them better. And this is a question from the periphery.
Okay, the question that you should ask first is, currently, not with open access, but currently, where are these developing country researchers publishing? Are they publishing at all? And if so, where are they publishing? If they're publishing in journals, then if those articles are made open access, then the uptake of those articles will be increased for them for sure. If they're not publishing in journals, and they're not publishing, I mean, my question is, what are they doing with the research findings? I mean, there are other solutions there, but now we're out of the domain of open access to peer-reviewed journal articles. We're in the domain of access to information, and that's more general. So this quick answer is, for a developing country user, it's evident that it's pure tista hason, pure profit to have all this stuff open access. For a developing country author, the same is true in as much as the author is actually publishing, because what it does is the same thing it does for a Harvard author. It increases the uptake of their research, and that's why they're doing the research. For those who are not publishing, it's beyond, how shall I say, the scope of what I'm saying, but the obvious answer, you should go back to scope 3 and preprints. Now, people can put things up on the web even if it's not peer-reviewed. And I mean, I don't approve of that, and I don't, but it can be done, and that increases their impact as well.
You have not convinced me on that one, so I'll try again next time.
Okay, say it again. No, say it again. What is the remaining niggle?
The remaining question is, you're now dividing the group of readers into 3 different types, right?
No.
No?
There's 2 kinds of readers. Pardon me, there's either 2 or 4 kinds of. There are readers who are in developing countries and the readers who are in developed countries. There are readers who have subscription access and there's readers who don't. So there's 4 kinds of readers: developed with, developed without, developing with, developing without. And the situation is the same for all of them. And complementarily, the authors have the same thing. Their potential readers are either accessed, developing, developed, subscription or not subscription, and the answer is the same for all of them. Give more access, you'll have more access, and you'll have more impact for everybody, everywhere. There's no exceptions.
But my colleague would not be satisfied, I know. I can see his face, and he says, you must ask him again. And he will say, still, if the business models of open access journals are author pay models without waivers, we're talking about those without waivers, still open access will cause authors from developing countries to publish less.
I understand.
Right?
But what you've done actually is you've implicitly asked me a gold OA question again without saying so.
I'm sorry, it wasn't intended. Anyway, you'll deal with it.
Gold open access. I agree. Right now, both for developing countries and developed countries, it is not necessary and it's not reasonable for them to pay for gold open access. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about green open access, which has nothing to do with paying for gold open access.
Point taken. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Stevan. Do we have any other questions or comments? We have one more question.
Hello, Stevan. I'm Nikolai from Romania, and my question is, when we will find a centralized place where every piece of FUD will be dissolved, because I need this to convince my people in Romania. Thank you.
Yes, well, I have a FAQ that dissolves 38 pieces of FUD. And lately, if you've been keeping up with it, I mean, Elsevier has a bit of FUD now in it. Elsevier was one of the 60% of journals that was green, immediate unembargoed self-archiving of the author's final draft, and now it's added a piece of FUD. The FUD says the author retains the right to self-archive immediately without embargo. And make freely accessible the author's final draft in his institutional website or his repository, except if his institution has a systematic mandate to do so. So that's a clear piece of FUD, and there is an answer to that, of course, both a logical and a legal and a sensible answer. But these pieces of FUD grow. Every time you knock down one piece of FUD, 2 more pieces of FUD come in its place. By the way, FUD means fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's when you try to discourage someone from doing something by threatening or by alluding to things that are not really true. And in this case, the Elsevier FUD is just FUD. And there are lots of other pieces of FUD. I can't tell you that there's one place that has and will destroy all FUD. I can't tell you that for open access, and I can't tell you that for any other things that are good for humanity. There will always be FUD, but there will always be, and the good thing about open access is the FUD can always be exposed. And what we're doing right now, for example, with the Elsevier FUD, I'm trying to get Elsevier back on the side of the angels. I'm not an affordability advocate. That's not my area. I'm not a librarian. I know that Elsevier overcharges and that there are many people angry about that, but I'm bracketing that. I'm not dealing with that. I'm dealing with accessibility. And Elsevier was on the side of the angels since 2004 by saying to their authors, you can self-archive right away your final draft. I'm anxious to get them back on the side of the angels because it's better to have them on the side of the angels. But as I said, the IDOA mandate can handle embargoes as well, so it's not life and death.
Thanks a lot, Stevan.